It has been less than a week since Democratic Governor Andrew Cuomo released his first budget proposal, and so far the response from the right has been surprisingly positive. Members of the Tea Party movement and the state Conservative Party chairman are all speaking up with some high praise for the spending plan, but several Senate Republicans, although they are positive generally, have identified a sticking point. The so-called Long Island Nine, who represent a key swing region when it comes to maintaining control of the chamber, have signaled their displeasure with the governor's proposed education cuts. Now, I'm joined by one of the nine. He's here to discuss the group's concerns. Senator John Flanagan represents parts of Suffolk County on Long Island. He also chairs the Education Committee. Senator, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So, okay, that sounds sort of ominous, the Long Island Nine. Exactly. It also, we should note, includes Dean Skelos, who is the majority leader of the Senate. You guys say you understand that cuts are coming in education aid, but you want them to be fair. How are they not fair?
Yes, we certainly understand that cuts are coming, and I look at this not only as a state senator from Long Island, but I am chairing the Education Committee, and frankly, when Senator Skelos asked me to take this job, the one thing he really stressed to me more than anything else was, whatever we do in terms of financing, just make sure it's fair. And my problem is, I'll use a couple of districts that I happen to represent, and I'm not trying to make this about me, but I have a district called Sachem, which is a middle-income district. It's not an affluent district by any stretch, and they take a 17% cut, 16.9%, but it's a $16 million hit to their budget in terms of state aid. They are a big district. I'm not going to suggest for a moment that they aren't, but when I look at the contention that there's a 2.9% cut statewide and it's 7% on Long Island, or supposed to be 7% overall, and then I see districts at 14, 15, 16, 7%, 17%, there's something wrong with that. And I want to be very, very clear. This is not a problem that it is isolated to Long Island.
Senator,
yes.
If I may just for a second interrupt, what does middle income mean to you in Suffolk County?
You can look at median income, but what we generally tend to do is look at formulas up here, like what is your combined wealth ratio when you take into account property and income. I don't, Liz, on an exact number, I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
But
I guess I'm not trying to put you on the spot in specific numbers. What I mean is that I think that Suffolk County is one of the wealthiest counties in the state, and that there are folks who are, living upstate, much further upstate, who are saying, okay, they look at Suffolk County and they think, well, don't most of those people, even if they might be middle income, it's nothing compared to, say, what the average homeowner in maybe Binghamton is earning, or Utica, for example. So maybe those districts are looking pretty wealthy comparatively, no?
Yeah, but you have to take into account, if you're going to do that, you have to look at the city of New York and the state in its entirety. We have things like regional costs. I mean, it's more expensive to live on Long Island for a variety of reasons. But you can go up to Plattsburgh, Binghamton, Utica, and I could probably very easily pick out parts of that community where you have more wealth than others.
True.
The same thing applies in Nassau and Suffolk County, and you can look at the city of New York. I mean, you have some very poor neighborhoods within the city, but you also have some very affluent ones. So our charge is to work with the governor to come up with something that works. Now, Senator Skelos and I and my colleagues have been very clear. I know there are going to be cuts. That's something that we have to do. Nobody likes doing that, but for anyone who's going to walk around telling their school districts that there are not going to be cuts, they're not telling the truth. The cold, hard reality is that we're going to have to make difficult choices. All we're really asking is, if you have to distribute the pain, just do it fairly. Well, I can't go back with those kind of numbers and say that that's a fair distribution.
Okay. Well, of course. I mean, and also education aid is very important. And I mean, the cold reality here from a political standpoint is you got to be able to hold Long Island. And there were some Democratic gains made on Long Island, and now the Republicans are back in control of the entire delegation. Hence, Long Island, the Long Island Nine. I mean, the thing is, though, how far are you willing to go to hold things up and dig in and say, fair and equitable to us needs to be everybody gets 2.9% across the board, because 2.9% to you, again, might be looking a lot better from a person in a lower income district that says 2.9%, whatever the fair and equitable number is, doesn't look so fair to those people who can't spare it, per se.
Yeah, but Liz, I disagree with part of what you said. The 2.9%, I don't think that should be what every district gets. I know where I live, the level of income is higher than some of my neighboring communities. I get that. I understand it. So we need to drive money to high-needs districts, which is what we do now. And we have to be mindful of that. So No one, including myself, is saying that everyone should get the same exact dollar amount or something like that. But there does have to be some proportionality to it. And we're looking, you're kind of making an assumption that things cannot work out. The governor comes out with this budget, we're supposed to respond. Now, but I've said, I spoke to the governor last week, $1.5 billion on a cut for education, I get it. He knows that I didn't say anything about that, nor do many of my colleagues, because we understand the depth and the gravity and the seriousness of the problem. It would be foolhardy of us not to offer our opinions, and we wouldn't be representing our various communities. And I look at this as chair of the Senate Education Committee. I want the kids in the city of New York, I want them doing well. Utica, Plattsburgh, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo. My new colleague from Buffalo, Mark Rasante. We've sat down and talked about Buffalo, which, frankly, is a very poor district. We're not looking to take money away from them. See, what happens is, and you know this, as soon as you start to say something, people go, oh, they don't want to join in the game. I want to join in the game, but there should be nothing wrong with a healthy debate on this.
This is the senator. You heard it here first. The senator is asking for cuts. Wait, let me just ask you quickly though.
Sure.
The other thing that the governor talked about is these high administrative costs, singling out some superintendents. In fact, one in Long Island, not in Suffolk County, in Nassau County, who happens to earn actually somewhere in the neighborhood of $386,000, which is a lot of money. Any way you slice it, it is more than twice the governor's own budget, I believe. Do you think that a pay cap is appropriate, much like what Chris Christie's doing in New Jersey? Do you think the Senate could go along with that?
I do think so. I've taken some pretty hard positions on these things. The cost, and it's not just isolated to Nassau County. There are other places in the state, but the decisions are made at the local level by school boards, and the salary at that level is outrageous. The governor of the state of New York makes $179,000. A school district superintendent, I don't care where you're from, shouldn't be making that kind of money. The city schools chancellor, Kathy Black, makes, I think, $250,000. There's 1 million kids. You know, I mean, there is a tremendous difference, and I think it's very fair to raise that debate. And what it does, it gets people paying more attention. And then if we want to go to that debate about distribution and fairness and equity, then I think it's all part of what should be discussed. There's no question in my mind, a contract like that, to me, in my opinion, as a taxpayer, as a parent, as an elected official, it's outrageous. But we have to keep the big picture in mind. Now, the governor has detailed a number of things in education, but I don't know what he's doing in Medicaid. I don't know what he's doing in terms of mandate relief.
Right.
And I'm not the only one. I don't know what's going on with prison closures. And those are things that all have to be fleshed out over the course of the next 4 to 5 weeks. So it's not solely related to education. And, you know, we have a tremendous amount of work ahead of us, and I won't apologize, and I don't think any one of us should, for raising points that are a fair and legitimate part of the debate. I'll give you one other example that I think is something that no one is really focusing on right now. The governor does a cost shift in his education budget for what we call 4201 schools, schools for the blind and the deaf.
Right.
In the past, the state was picking up at least 70% of that cost. Now the governor is shifting it, saving the state $100 million, but putting that cost back on local school districts. No one has even talked about that. That's a $100 million mandate, cost shift to local districts that in the history of this program, which is well over 100 years, nothing like that has ever happened. So if I'm going to make that part of the debate, that is an absolutely fair and essential part of what needs to be discussed. Just because the governor proposes doesn't mean that we have to blithely go along and pass whatever he wants. Let me also be very clear. He's outlined the problem. He's done it in many respects in good detail in some areas, lacking in others, but we absolutely have an obligation to work with him because this problem is not going to go away unless we all work together.
And Senator John Flanagan, we're unfortunately going to have to leave it there because we're out of time, but I want to thank you for joining us again. I'm sure we're going to see you soon.
Okay, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.